So high latency, difficulty to get it in fast, difficulty to get it out fast. Second problem is the programmer problem. The dynamics of programming in the cloud are dollar-based, and you need to be thinking about unit tests that put a costing on the things that you do in your application. We don't use any of the per transaction services of Amazon. So there's SQS, SimpleDB, CloudFront are all per transaction services that build tiny amounts, but actually can cost you a huge amount of money. So if you're building those services and you put a SimpleDB query by accident inside a tight loop rather than outside it, well, you can start paying lots of dollars for that. You scan that out to maybe 20, 30 nodes on a grid. Before you know it, you'll spend serious money. So you really need to start thinking about your programmers understanding that the transactions they do in Amazon or on Azure when it comes out are going to cost you real money. And your unit tests need to put in a cost value when you're doing those tests, system tests as well. You also need to get your programmers aware that you're living in public on the cloud, and so security is at the forefront of everything they do, and lots of programmers pay lip service to this stuff, and I thought I knew pretty much most of the things there were to know about security until I did the extremely expensive Oracle security course that Oracle commissioned after they had a major breach on the database. Trust me, there are 1,000 million different ways to crack into your system. It's really important that every programmer understands that they are a waypoint for that potential hacker. The next thing is what I call the Britney Spears problem, and this is something we came up with quite early on. We were running an open, unencrypted system at the start, and the challenge for us and any cloud service provider is somebody else owns the storage. So Britney Spears signs up for PutPlace. She goes up, she signs in with the Britney Spears username, and she starts uploading her photographs. Well, either an operator in PutPlace or an operator over in Amazon sees that account popping up and just goes, well, I think I'll have those photographs. I can sell them for millions of dollars. Really important that you understand that you can't expose your end user's data to that kind of risk, and that's client-side encryption for everybody, thank you very much. If you're going to give your user data to some other vendor, you better be encrypting, and encrypting on your side is not going to be enough. Client-side encryption is in the future. Now, even we don't do this yet for reasons that I'll come to as we get to the end of this slide. But it's something that we're going to have to solve if we're really going to engage our end user community in using cloud computing for their end user needs.
A couple of minutes left.
Bank problem, big issue. All my account information is valuable. It's not just Britney Spears' account, and everything I have has to be kept for 7 years, come hell or high water. Certainly in Ireland, it may be different in the UK. So I have an issue of everything is exposed. If I can get, if a hacker or a user or a third party can get into any of this data, I'm in trouble. So every single account has to be protected with the same level of security as you might put in place for Britney Spears. That requires not just client-side encryption, but also it requires that you can decrypt the data because certain services need to be able to see that data. And you also need to ensure that there's audit controls so that the data isn't modified in some way to suddenly bump up a load of money. The doctor problem, I'm a GP, I have really valuable, useful data on my account. I'm not technically aware. I'm a sole agent. I need to keep that data somewhere. In the UK, you've got the summary care record, which is managed by the National Health Service. I need to get that data up into the cloud and into that summary care record, but I need to track and control who uses it and who has access to it. Again, if I'm using Amazon, that's a big problem. The final issue then is the end user problem. If we want to use client-side encryption, these guys are going to break our systems for us. They're going to lose their client-side keys. They're going to use bad passwords. They're going to do stupid stuff that's going to expose your system. And it's not going to be their fault. It's going to be our fault if they do it wrong. So it's really important that we educate our users, and that's one of the reasons that PutPlace hasn't yet rolled out PKI encryption for end users. Quick cost structures, total capital costs for our business, 24K. That's the kinds of savings you can get. All we're talking about is laptops and one build server that we still use because having build server in-house is convenient. Our original running costs for our grid when we hosted it in a data center provider in the UK, in Ireland, we're about €1,000 a month for 4 nodes, right? We can get 8 nodes running, including a high compute instance for €1,800 a month, and that includes our storage and bandwidth costs. So, I mean, you know, there are real genuine savings to be made here if you manage a grid. And of course, we can turn our grid up and down at will. So I could turn that down to 4 nodes tomorrow and nobody would notice a performance hit because a lot of that is redundancy for us. So we can pop those nodes up and down based on the amount of load we see on the system. So key lessons for us. Cloud computing is a useful adjunct to what you do in your real business, but I wouldn't be throwing out the servers that you host anytime soon. Our goal is to deploy to any Linux grid in minutes, so we can move off EC2 if there was a problem with EC2 in a matter of minutes to hours, depending on the time it takes to deploy. We watch our per transaction costs like a hawk. I'd be looking at that stuff every day to make sure there isn't a glitch going on. We still run our build server locally because we started off using VM server and there was no Windows hosting in EC2, but actually everything we do could be run remotely. We like Amazon, but we're definitely going to look to host in parallel on something like Azure or GoGrid in the future because it's the only way you can guarantee total fault tolerance and redundancy. And client encryption is going to be in everybody's future if you want to be in the cloud, and you better understand that PKI stuff well enough to explain it to your users. My name's Joe Drumgoole. My company's Putplace. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Joe. I know that was... for some people that is quite technical, and some people will just think, oh my God, everybody knows this. Anybody, any questions? There's one at the back there. We've got a mic for you.
Yeah, how big of a problem do you think this encryption is? Because it sounds like it's going to over-complex your application for the end users. For the
people that don't care. Can you use the mic?
For the people that don't care, it's fine, but there are specific domains I talked about there. You're going to have it that it just won't go into the cloud. So if you want to offer your service to banks or doctors or to people with, you know, important information they don't want anybody else to get a hold of, it's going to have to exist for those users. So it's going to have to be part of your solution going forward.
Okay, any other points? No, we're going to have a next speaker.